So yeah, it's basically these three. It's earning Bitcoin, saving in Bitcoin, which I think is the best use case of Bitcoin right now. And then
Feel like it, but
Yeah, I was gonna say
What's that?
right now.
it doesn't feel like it right now.
doesn't feel like it when the price is going down, right? And then spending Bitcoin. Those are the three options. So that is Bitcoin for everyday use. And when you're doing all these things, when you're earning Bitcoin, spending Bitcoin, saving Bitcoin, you're what's called on a Bitcoin standard. So right now, most everybody is on a dollar standard, right? Because we earn dollars, we save dollars, and we spend dollars.
That's
So
our frame of reference now, yeah.
yeah, so this is the frame of reference. So we call that like living on a Bitcoin standard. We change our frame of reference from dollars to Bitcoin instead of saying, oh, well, how much, what's my value in US dollars, or what's my retirement account in US dollars? It's like, oh, well, how much Bitcoin do I have now? And do I have more Bitcoin this year than I had last year? Am I growing my Bitcoin wealth, or is it decreasing? Hopefully not. But this is really, trying to get you thinking in this new Bitcoin way to ultimately one day perhaps move to a Bitcoin standard, and because it's really difficult right now. Bitcoin is not really a medium of exchange, although it was designed to be. And because of the price appreciation over the last decade, it doesn't make much sense to spend Bitcoin, in my opinion, except for altruistic reasons, just to facilitate the growth of the Bitcoin network. When you send Bitcoin to people, then they send it to people, and we get this network effect as more people use it. But from a purely selfish point of view, it doesn't make much sense to me to spend Bitcoin in these days, because we're still establishing Bitcoin as a store of value, right? This has to, hold our wealth. It has to hold our time and our energy that we spent somewhere else. And once it's established as a store of value, then it can be easily and confidently used as a medium of exchange. Instead of barter, we're actually giving Bitcoin to people. We're trading things for Bitcoin. And it's not really a good medium of exchange now, because the world is still figuring out what is Bitcoin. Is it money? And so the value is fluctuating a lot. So it's very difficult to live on a Bitcoin standard when the value is fluctuating, because you could buy some in October at $125,000 and then try to spend it today at $68,000. And just by spending the Bitcoin, you're losing, because you're basically selling at a loss. So it doesn't really make much sense, in this type of environment. It's hard to plan. Your money that you use on a day-to-day basis, you want it to be of a stable value. And that's one of the benefits of the US dollar, is that it's consistently going down 2 to 5% a year. You can bank on that. Right? It's consistent. It may be draining you of your wealth.
At least it's consistent.
At least it's consistent. You can count on that. And as a business person, you like certainty. You're like, oh yes, I can count on this. Okay, I'm losing 2 to 5% a year. I can budget for that. I can plan and anticipate that. So
As long as I'm making 10 to 12, life's good.
exactly, on the other side. Did you want to say something, Amy, or no? Okay.
We also have tax implications in there too, with spending.
That's a great point. Yeah. So if you sell at a profit, then you automatically have a liability to pay taxes on that, known as capital gains. And for some people, that freaks them out. But it does cut into your profits, even though if you're a normal person, long-term capital gains is more like 15%. But if you're a very, very high earner, it could get up to like 35%. So, and then all of a sudden your gains are taken by Uncle Sam or Aunt Europe or wherever you happen to live. Let's get into it here. Okay, you guys all know who I am. Don't have to go over this again. Hi there. So earning Bitcoin. Many people are surprised to learn that they can actually have their paychecks deposited into an account that pays them directly immediately in Bitcoin. So, and this image here is from an app called Strike, and they have a bank account where your employer could simply, send your ACH paycheck twice a month or whatever it is, bi-monthly, you get paid, and it goes directly into your Strike account. And then they immediately convert it into Bitcoin. And you never have to think about it, like, when am I buying? It just automatically gets converted.
Do you know anybody who's doing that? Because I was considering doing that with Unchained.
With Unchained?
Yeah.
You can't do it with Unchained.
I had a notification, I thought. So
Oh, really?
that's what made me think about asking you about it.
Okay, I'm unaware then if you can do that with Unchained. You have your paychecks deposited at
Or
Unchained.
may have been on hold. I'm sorry.
Okay.
One of those two.
But there are others that allow you to do this. And for instance, you could have your Social Security checks deposited directly into a Strike account or a Fold account. And Fold is another app that is similar to Strike and has some real advantages for spending Bitcoin, which we'll get to in the next slide. And there are other websites as well. There's Bitwage, which is a neat website, and it's in many countries as well. And it also allows you to invoice in Bitcoin. So if you run a business, your point of sale terminal, if it's operated through Square, you can easily convert your terminal into a Bitcoin receiving terminal, where it'll provide a QR code that you scan with your Bitcoin app and you pay in Bitcoin. Okay. If you have a wallet already, all you need is a public address to give to a client or to anyone who's paying you for any service that you're providing, and all you need to do is give them a public address and they can send you Bitcoin. Now, that's on the base layer of Bitcoin, and it'll settle in 10 to 30 minutes, so it's not instantaneous, and we'll get a little bit into the Lightning Network, which is instantaneous settlement. Another way to earn Bitcoin is to mine it at home, and we talked about mining a couple months ago. And for people who really believe in Bitcoin and the future of Bitcoin, they're investing in Bitcoin miners. And they're getting paid on a relatively frequent basis. They're getting paid in Bitcoin. So that's another way to acquire Bitcoin. And then finally, one of the favorite ways that I like to earn Bitcoin is with a Gemini credit card. So when you go out here, so you too, Donna and Terry, when you go out to dinner, you get 3% back in Bitcoin. Hi,
Hey,
Mark.
how you doing, Mark?
Welcome. Oh, you got a limp.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pickleball.
Pickleball. Tell me about it. So there are a lot of ways to earn Bitcoin, and it's really much easier than you might think. If you run a business, if you're a consultant like I am, I encourage my customers to always pay me in Bitcoin. You can earn Bitcoin through mining. You can have your government checks automatically converted into Bitcoin. So earning Bitcoin is really not a problem as long as you have the conviction that you want to live on a Bitcoin standard. And we already talked about the dangers of living on a Bitcoin standard, so you may not be ready for it, and I would certainly understand. So saving in Bitcoin is, to me, the primary use case of Bitcoin, and that's what we generally talk about in our meetups. When we get together, we talk about how to save in Bitcoin, how to store it, how to back it up, all the reasons that we love Bitcoin. It's a store of value, it's an inflation hedge in every country in the world, although America might have the best inflation. You know, inflation is still evil, and you go to other countries and inflation is just crazy. It's an appreciating asset if you hold it long enough, right? No one who has held Bitcoin for more than 4 years has suffered any loss at all. So as long as you have a long-term horizon, Bitcoin is a great appreciating asset. If you don't have a bank account, in the West, we all take bank accounts for granted, but we fail to realize that there's billions of people in the world who don't have access to basic banking. So Bitcoin can really serve as a banking option in people in other countries. Emergency funds. If something should happen to the US dollar, if war should break out, people like to save Bitcoin as an alternative to the US dollar. And also, it can't be seized by any government. That's one of the other benefits of Bitcoin, is that no matter what happens to us, no one can take our Bitcoin from us once we store it properly in self-custody. And we went over that many months ago as well. And I know many of you are properly holding in self-custody or will be. And then finally, Bitcoin is a great place to save for retirement because it's such a great appreciating asset. And since you have a long-term horizon when you set up an individual retirement account, Bitcoin is like the perfect marriage there, in my opinion, for savings. So now let's get to the juicy stuff, right? How do we spend our Bitcoin? So there are a lot of online merchants that accept Bitcoin if you want to spend your Bitcoin. Some of the big ones, Microsoft, Home Depot, Overstock. And by the way, I bought a laptop at Overstock a number of years ago. And I regret actually buying the laptop because it's a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin today. But I mean, that laptop was a very, very expensive laptop in today's Bitcoin price, which is why I don't like spending Bitcoin anymore. Because once you do this and you spend, say, $1,000, 7 or 8 years ago in Bitcoin, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, today that would be worth a lot more. I could have bought 50 laptops, right? But in any case, you can spend your Bitcoin. And especially if you're already living on the Bitcoin standard, you got constant Bitcoin coming in, you might want to spend some of it. You're not evil because you want to spend Bitcoin. Bitcoin eventually is going to be spent. Hopefully you're going to spend a lot of Bitcoin in your life in addition to just accumulating it. Right? So physical retail stores are starting to take Bitcoin now. Most prominently, our friends at Steak and Shake. And if you haven't been to Steak and Shake up in North River Shores here, delicious hamburgers, and they grill them with the Bitcoin B logo on the bun, and you can pay with Bitcoin. And I've done it a couple times, and it's really fun. And maybe we'll do that as an outing one day. We've been talking about it, so that would be fun, just to go and spend some Bitcoin. The burgers are like $6 or something. I think we can afford that, and it just shows that you can do this pretty easily. And Mark's here, and he had a dental practice that was accepting Bitcoin for how long? Still is. It's still running. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're taking in a good amount of Bitcoin. So we actually have someone here who has experience with point of sale terminals and accounting of Bitcoin and how to treat it for your accountant and communicate this to your accountant who thinks you're crazy, right? It's okay. No, it's good to share the stories. And Mark does a lot of work trying to orange peel merchants and get them to accept Bitcoin. So that's his mission, and I do support the mission. So yeah, it's good work, God's work.
Every Bitcoiner's work, really.
Yeah. So I wanted to let you guys know about a couple of apps that you can get that allow you to really do a lot of buying and get Bitcoin back when you buy with Bitcoin on their apps. And this is Bitrefill and Fold. And like some of the popular vendors, like for instance, I use it for Amazon. You can buy like $100 gift card with Bitrefill, and then you get Bitcoin back when you spend it. So it's like you're already spending hundreds of dollars at Amazon every year or whatever, and you might as well get some Bitcoin back from it. And this is how you can earn Bitcoin while just doing your daily purchases anyway. And Fold has the same thing. There's a whole raft of merchants that you can see that you can buy gift cards from, and you get Bitcoin back from doing it. So these are two apps that I encourage you to explore if you're a shopper or if you're just buying things regularly. And you can get some Bitcoin back in the process, and it's very, very popular. You just have to sort of organize your payments and make sure it's funded, and then you go there and you have to make sure you use the app to buy these things. Yeah. And then finally, you can buy real estate with it. If you find a seller who's willing to accept Bitcoin, you can buy real estate with Bitcoin. And of course, you have to be a cash buyer. You're not going to get financing, but there are people who will accept Bitcoin if you simply ask them, will you take Bitcoin? And you can write that into your sales contract. It's totally legal. There's nothing fishy about it. It's all above board. Yeah. Any other suggestions about how to spend with Bitcoin? Anyone? Okay. So we can also do travel. Travel is popular amongst Bitcoiners. So there are a couple of websites. Cheap Air was the first. They've been allowing us to buy air tickets with Bitcoin for a couple of years now. Last year, Emirates Air announced that they were going to integrate Bitcoin into their payment systems this year. There's Bitcoin Travel, which is a Bitcoin-only travel firm, and you can do flights, hotels, cars, I think, and pay exclusively in Bitcoin. BitcoinTravel.com is a new El Salvador-based travel agency. And then some hotel chains actually accept Bitcoin, although I wasn't able to verify this myself. Has anyone seen hotels like Marriott or Hilton or anything? Or I don't know, but anyway, this is what my research told me, although I've never seen it. Okay, so then the Lightning Network is something that we have never talked about before, at least formally in these settings. And the Lightning Network was developed around 2017, 2018, 2019 in response to the criticism that Bitcoin transactions are too slow and they don't scale, because Bitcoin can handle about 7 transactions a second is sort of what it does. And also Bitcoin transactions, they settle in anywhere from 1 to 30 minutes. So you can't very well walk into a store and try to buy something and try to send them Bitcoin on chain, because it takes too long. And it's just not practical if everyone wanted to use the base layer of Bitcoin. So this is how we save in Bitcoin, is in the base layer, but generally how we spend in Bitcoin is in this layer on top of the base layer, which we call the Lightning Network. And it is designed to replace our credit cards and our debit cards, because it can handle millions of transactions per second. And it is nearly instantaneous settlement. And it is final settlement. So when we go to Steak and Shake, or when we go to Mark's dental practice, we probably are paying in Lightning, right?
Yeah, we accept both.
Both.
But most people
On-chain.
pay, the smaller things.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. So, but anything of a small ticket, it'll generally be a Lightning transaction. And almost all the wallets that we have on our phone, they will have a Bitcoin wallet, which is the base layer, pure Bitcoin. And it'll also have a Lightning wallet with it, because a lot of people, want to have a small amount of Bitcoin on their phone to make quick transactions at a store. Go to Terry's store and I want to buy some glasses. Okay, well, you got to whip out your Lightning wallet, because you want it to be instantaneous and you don't want to have to wait for the on-chain transaction to clear. And that's the sort of how it works. So, and only that, the great thing about it is that the fees are tiny. I mean, it's like less than a penny or like a penny. And then, it's just so much better than the base layer for these smaller transactions. And so the base layer of Bitcoin is eventually going to be just for larger transactions. Certainly greater than $100, probably greater than $1,000 in today's terms. But this Lightning Network is designed to handle everyday transactions for everyone around the world. And it's a great improvement on Bitcoin that if you haven't been in Bitcoin for a long time, you may not even know that this is a relatively new development and was not a part of the original blueprint of Satoshi and the white paper. But this was created in order to counter this criticism that Bitcoin can't scale. Well, we have this another layer on top of the Bitcoin base layer, and that settles all these transactions, and then it settles back down to the base layer. And the metaphor that we use for the Lightning Network is like opening up a bar tab. So you walk into a bar. Tim might know something about a bar tab. Not to pick on Tim. But you walk into a bar and you open up a tab, right? Instead of paying for a beer or a drink, every time you buy the drink, you say, just open up a tab, okay? And then I'll get my friends on the tab, and and you kind of keep track, and then you settle at the end of the night. That's sort of the idea of these Lightning channels, is that you have all these different vendors kind of exchanging transactions, and at the end of some specified period, it doesn't have to be the end of the day, it's just some specified period, we then close the channel and settle the bill. But most of these channels, they stay open, and people are just exchanging these Satoshis back and forth, and it's all kept straight through the power of computers. It's all kept straight. The downside of Lightning Network is that it's generally not self-custodial. In other words, we don't hold the private keys to this Bitcoin. Now, that is the sacrifice that we have to pay in order to have all these wonderful features of a layer 2 network, of the Lightning Network. We get instant settlement, we get instantaneous transactions, and we get very low fees, and it's a great invention, but it's not self-custodial. So it's not generally considered safe to be sending large amounts on the Lightning Network, although I have heard of people sending $10,000 at a time on the Lightning Network because they're very confident with it. But I would think of it as something for day-to-day spending. You could even pay a hotel bill on it if you wanted to. But think of it as something for transactions. And so I just want you to be aware of the Lightning Network, particularly if you're downloading some apps like Strike or Fold or Blockstream or any of these others that I've listed here. Sometimes you'll see Bitcoin wallet, Lightning wallet. And you might be wondering, what's this Lightning thing? And the addresses and the code, the QR codes are not the same. They're different. So if you try to send Bitcoin if you try to send a Bitcoin transaction through the Lightning Network, it won't work. If you try to send a Lightning transaction through the Bitcoin network, it won't work. So you have to keep these straight. So another use of Bitcoin in our day-to-day and Lightning transactions is tipping. Now, this is something that I don't do a lot, but other people are really fond of tipping people on the X app and on Nostr. If you like something that people posted in these social media sites, you can just quickly send them 100 sats, or even the Orange Club app now. It's called Orange Club, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be called Orange Pill. Orange Pill, Orange Club. Like, we receive like sats every day. I get sats every day from that app, like 21 sats a day, or always someone promoting something on there. So they send everyone who has the app 21 sats, and then they say, my business, whatever it is, things like that. So yeah. And there are also some websites that accept Bitcoin Lightning payments for getting access to their research or their articles. And that's a model that I think had a lot of excitement a number of years ago, because newspapers, of course, are having a terrible time staying in business. They're getting crushed by, internet journalism. But there was some movement to try to get paywalled websites to be accepting Bitcoin payments. And I don't think much has really happened from that, but it's still an idea and something that could happen in the future. So anyone ever paid for an article, like a small amount of Bitcoin for an article or anything online? No, I haven't either. Okay, and then this is a big use case of Bitcoin these days, and that is getting loans against your Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as collateral to get a loan from an institution. So let's say you have one Bitcoin. You would then be able to get a loan in US dollars for half the value of that Bitcoin. In other words, 50% loan to value. And so for people who want to cash out but not pay capital gains on their Bitcoin, this is a very attractive option because they are not selling their Bitcoin. They're getting loans. And in the United States, loans are not taxable. So this is tax-free money that you're getting without selling your Bitcoin. And if you eventually plan to repay the loan, you can get the Bitcoin back. And in the magic of compounding, compounding is a magical property. So imagine if you got a loan today from your one Bitcoin, and say you got, we'll say round numbers, we'll say you got $50,000 for your one Bitcoin. Well, if in 10 years that one Bitcoin is worth $1 million, you could basically settle your debt there for somewhere between 1/10 and 5/100ths of a Bitcoin in 10 years. So it's a great deal if you believe in the long-term properties and the long-term value of Bitcoin, because you can get cash today while still riding the appreciation of Bitcoin into the future. And then at some point in the future where you feel like you want to close out this loan, then you can sell a little bit of Bitcoin. Instead of selling, say, half a Bitcoin in 2026, you could then sell 1/10 that amount of Bitcoin in 10 years, and we'll have still gotten that cash today to spend on what you need to spend it on. So that math might sound a little bit too good to be true. Anyone have any questions about that?
Who's loaning against it?
Right. So there are a number of companies that are loaning right now. They are not traditional financial institutions yet, like Schwab or JP Morgan or Wells Fargo. There are these other companies. So Strike, which many of you have the app, they've started doing lending. Ledden is a company out of Canada that I have a lot of experience with, and I have a loan with them actually. And Coinbase recently entered this market as well. So the interest rate on these loans are generally higher than what you get in, from a bank or from a mortgage for sure. They're around 11.5% right now. But if you believe that the long-term growth rate of Bitcoin is going to be greater than 11.5%, then over the long period, you're actually making money because it's the spread between the long-term value of Bitcoin and your interest rate. That's your profit. You're actually making money and while still getting cash on your loan. So this is a really new concept, and it took me a while to really understand this. So noodle on this a little bit if you're still a little fuzzy on it. And the big risk of these loans is getting liquidated. That's the big risk you take because Bitcoin is a volatile asset. And if your loan to value falls to say 80 or 90%, they will call you. They will say, you got to deposit more Bitcoin or we're going to liquidate your loan and we're going to take your Bitcoin and you keep your cash and we're done. And so that's the risk is this is, as we see, Bitcoin is volatile. We've gone down 50% in 4 months here. So you have to be prepared to either lose the loan or to add more Bitcoin in order to keep the loan going. Okay, so that's the big risk.
Again, Mark, the other risk is like Celsius that went out of business. So make sure you're dealing with somebody, the names out there now are big names.
Right. So that is a big risk. If your lender goes out of business, you probably will not see your Bitcoin again. So that's another risk. So this leads me to this last point is there's a new company on the block called Ligos, and they're building a multi-signature wallet to hold your collateral. So again, a multi-signature wallet is a wallet that needs 2 keys to move Bitcoin, and there are actually 3 keys. The 3 keys, one will be held by you, one will be held by Ligos, and one will be held by a neutral third party. You need 2 keys to move the Bitcoin, so you can't take your Bitcoin back. Ligos can't take the Bitcoin. But if the terms of the contract are triggered that Ligos gets to keep the Bitcoin because your loan to value went too high, then the third party will use their key and Ligos will get your Bitcoin. If you close the loan under the terms of the contract and you satisfy the terms of the contract, then you will be able to use your key and the third party will be able to use their key and you'll be able to get your Bitcoin back. And the real advantage of this is that even if a company goes out of business, they can't touch your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin will still theoretically you'll be able to get your Bitcoin back. And so there's a lot of peace of mind knowing that you can actually see your Bitcoin on chain, held in this wallet that no one can touch. So it's on chain. You can actually see your collateral. With these other companies, Strike, Ledden, and Coinbase, they take your Bitcoin and then they lend it out to somebody else to make their interest on it, and then it keeps going. And so that creates paper Bitcoin, which is really not what we want as Bitcoiners. We want to maintain sound money principles. So this Ligos Finance, they just went online a couple of months ago, and I'm trying out a loan with them right now, and it's pretty interesting. So I think this is the next step in getting loans for your Bitcoin.
Mark, is Ledden's not a multi-sig wallet?
No.
It's not?
No.
I thought it was.
No.
Okay.
Now, if they take your Bitcoin, and you have to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they do have a,
Yeah.
they do have a non-hypothecated version of it.
Non-hypothecated, but you can't see your Bitcoin.
No, but I mean, one of the biggest risks and why Celsius blew up was because they had rehypothecated.
Right, but it's
Yeah,
still
sure.
not on chain. You still can't see the Bitcoin. You can't see
No.
your
You
collateral.
just can't transfer the
Yeah.
margins.
Yeah. So Ligos is creating a smart contract
Okay.
on the Bitcoin blockchain, and the terms of the contract are on chain, and the collateral is there. So it's an interesting product, and I think we'll see more of this in the future, or Ledden might even do this in the future, but not yet. So that's all I got tonight, guys.